On BBC One, Cliff.
Now for BBC One viewers who have just joined us. The news is that the Apollo launch countdown is on schedule. There is a picture direct from Cape Kennedy. The massive white Saturn 1B rocket, right in the middle, 364 feet high, will lift off from the launch pad at Cape Kennedy, Florida, in almost exactly 40 minutes from now. The three men are in it, and at Cape Kennedy, covering the launch for BBC viewers, is Michael Charlton. Michael Charlton, what's the situation now? Some 20 minutes ago, you said there was a slight query about the wind.
That query still hangs over the launch, Cliff, but at the moment the count is in its final stages, and this is the smoothest countdown to a manned space launch that the Americans have had so far. They've had no problems at all, and everything is on time. There are strict wind limits set for this launch. They vary between 18 and 27 knots. And the wind has been gusting at times up to 18 knots. But the latest news we have is that they expect to launch this spacecraft on time, and they expect the wind to drop to tolerable limits within the next 30 minutes. The count is in the terminal phase, as they call it here. It's about, as you said, 39 minutes to go now. And all is well. The three astronauts are in the Apollo spacecraft, the newest spacecraft being manned for the first time, strapped to their couches. They had New York strip steak and eggs for breakfast, which is the most predictable event of the day so far, I think.
BBC One.
They should be off on time in about 38 minutes.
Thank you very much indeed, Michael Charlton. And now,
For that matter, the cosmonauts have always impressed me by their very good working knowledge of what is going on. I know they spend a tremendous amount of time at the contractors whilst the capsules and even the rockets are being built. They've acquired knowledge. I don't think they're capable of designing things. They haven't that degree of background. In that sense, they're moderately qualified engineers. But they really do have to absorb, and have absorbed, a very good range of understanding right across the board of electronics, physics, aerodynamics, etc. I'd say they're pretty good.
But in an emergency, for example, when they're alone in the capsule, of which I'm told there are more than 2 million functional parts, how do they know which has gone wrong? And how do they know how to deal with it in an emergency?
They have a limited capability in that respect. They have computers on board, and the equipment is being monitored, and the information transmitted back to Earth as well. They have a degree of diagnosis they can carry out there, but in the event they are helped enormously by the facilities on Earth. But they do have some modest capability of putting certain things right themselves.
can I just inject one thing into this discussion, and that's what William Schneider, who's the Apollo 7 director, said at a press conference when they were talking about Zond 5 the other day. Schneider said that the Soviet shot was unmanned in the traditional Soviet pattern, but it's the quote, "Man is not an integral part of the Soviet program. Man is relatively incidental." Now, when I smiled like you, James, but once I heard it. But I wonder what Professor Takati has to say about that.
That's an accurate statement, of course. The Soviet philosophy is to explore big things first by automatic stations, check and recheck all the systems, and if they prove positive, then send men. That is the Russian philosophy. I don't think it is right to say that Zond 5 is anything extraordinary. I think it is the first member of a family of automatic flights. I wouldn't be surprised if, say, tomorrow or next few days, they would say, send another automatic station. We would circle the Earth and return. That will be the next step, logical step. Until they do that, I don't think they'll send men to the moon.
I think there is this part of the thing which is worth noting, and that is that the Americans, earlier on in their program, had set out to make an automatic sequence as well as a manual override capability. In fact, they found the man, the astronaut, was able to cope with a very greater number of problems than had earlier been thought. And now they are prepared to design into the spacecraft the man as an integral part of it. And they still have automatic sequences to help. But I think this is a slight change of philosophy even during the American program.
How valuable are these space simulators that one hears about? Did you see one of these whilst you were there?
Yes, I sat in one. It's an extraordinary experience. With the door closed, after about 5 minutes, you begin to forget that only 2 feet away there are technicians munching hot dogs and people smoking cigarettes and chatting. Outside the ports, as you look through, there are simulated presentations of the stars, the sun, the moon, and the Earth. And as you guide your spacecraft, the computers built into the simulator cause the outside views to move as they would do if you made a mistake, turned the thing upside down. And after about 25 minutes, all I wanted to do was get out.
Does this surprise you, Wing Commander?
No, not really. I think there's one point here when you're talking about simulation. We tend to think of astronauts being trained in simulators, but to think very little about the importance of training the men on the ground in simulated missions. See, dotted around the globe, there are a large number of people who are basically responsible for the monitoring of this flight, making sure that everything goes properly and correctly, and being required, should an emergency arise, to do something about it if it's within their power.
Shall we just hear what's going on the satellite at the moment?
Coming up shortly, the Apollo 7 spacecraft will go on full internal power. This will come at the 15-minute mark. This means that we will go on the full power of the 3 fuel cells aboard the Apollo 7. Up to this time, the fuel cells have been sharing the load with an external power source. When we go internal, we remove the external power source from the spacecraft. This will be coming up shortly. In the meantime, we're going through final calibrations of the overall telemetry systems concerned with the Saturn 1B launch vehicle. We're now coming up in a matter of seconds on the 15-minute mark in the count. Mark, T-minus 15 minutes and counting, T-minus 15. This is launch control.
And that was good word from launch control that they do not consider these gusty winds prohibitive, at least as of this moment, 15 minutes before launch time. So the countdown is now below 15 minutes, T-minus 14 minutes, 38 seconds. CBS News color coverage of the flight of Apollo 7 continues in a moment after this message.
Say so. Can you get Charlton in, Cliff?
I think gave you precisely the answer that I was looking for. What about these gusty winds? What was the last you heard over there? The word was heard.
Hello, Cliff, this is Cape Kennedy here, Cliff. Can you repeat that question?
I'm sorry.
In fact, 20 is already the goal. It's prohibitive. I don't know, I'm not with my business, but I don't think I would allow the thing to go up.
You think, as of now, with this possibility of gusting to 25,
If I
had to
were
cancel?
asked, I would say no.
But as you heard Walter Cunningham saying, what America needs is a successful flight.
That is precisely what I need to. And it's precisely for the reason I wouldn't allow it. So,
Can you get any idea of the kind of gusting winds from looking at that picture of the rocket that we from the Saturn V? Is there any way? I mean, most airmen can get it from sort of breezes in trees and things, but
Well, if you look carefully, there is a small vent open somewhere, isn't there?
Yes.
And what would that be
That's
that's
the
streaming
liquid
out?
oxygen boil-off, the vapor coming out of the liquid oxygen tank. So if there's no wind, well, you'll just see frost dropping down the outside. The fact that there is a steady wind is certainly evident by that
By
plume
the
going
stuff.
sideways, but the extent of the wind is difficult to say.
This is escape from the helium cooling system.
No, this is part of the propellants of the main rocket, liquid oxygen and kerosene. The liquid oxygen is extremely cold, and this is boiling off continuously, and the very cold gas above is condensing into the air outside.
well, now we're flashing back because this, as I understand it, is a tape of what happened some time ago when these 3 men made their way out to the launch pad.
I believe, in fact, they got up at 4:20 in the morning to start all this.
As far as the launch vehicle is concerned, our checkout is still continuing. The propellants are relatively stable aboard the launch vehicle, and all appears to be going well with all the space vehicle hardware at this time. Weather conditions are generally satisfactory, but we are still taking a close look at the surface wind conditions in the Cape Kennedy area in line with some of the mission rules we have concerning wind conditions.
And there are the astronauts. They've just arrived at pad 34 from their overnight quarters 7 miles away on Merritt Island. They're backing the van up to the base of this huge rector structure.
by to bring them aboard the spacecraft. Basically, the three astronauts will come aboard about 10-minute intervals between them, starting at, according to the countdown, at the 2-hour, 25-minute mark, and the count about 7 minutes from now. It's possible that the crew might board slightly earlier because of the arrival time. For a quick rundown on the crew, they were awakened as planned at 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time this morning. They've now been up just a little less than 2.5 hours. They went down the hall from their quarters at the Manned Spacecraft Operations Building, Kennedy Space Center, and had a brief physical examination. The doctors who gave the examination were Dr. Jerry Joyner and Dr. John Teagan. Following the examination, Dr. Joyner declared the three pilots were physically fit for the mission and said their physical exams were within normal limits and they're ready to go. The crew then sat down for a breakfast of steak and eggs with a number of guests in the crew quarters, including Mr. James Webb, who is the former administrator of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Following breakfast, the crew went to the suit room, which is nearby in the crew quarters, donned their suits, and since that time, when they were called by the spacecraft test conductor, boarded their transfer van and have now made the 7-mile trip to the pad. We had a good load of the propellants this morning, starting at 5 a.m. We brought the liquid oxygen and the liquid hydrogen aboard with no problems. It went very smoothly, the count proceeding satisfactorily at this time. The one matter we're still keeping a close eye on is the status of the surface winds in the Cape Kennedy area, which could have an effect on a possible launch attempt, since we have certain red lines or marginal conditions as far as surface winds are concerned for certain parameters of the flight. The wind forecast is in the area of 11 to 16 knots. It has been a little higher this morning by several knots. Guideline has been in the area of 18 knots.
Jack King fills us in again on this wind condition, which we have reported to you several times this morning. Let us report to you that you have just seen on your television screens there, the astronauts leave the transfer van and start up the elevator, 220 feet high.
And we have astronauts Schirra, Cunningham, and a suit technician aboard. They should be coming across the access arm shortly.
These pictures we're seeing at the moment
You see them
are in
crossing
fact
now.
those that are coming from NASA cameras, and that's why we're getting them in black and white, a recording of what happened about 2.5 hours ago, and you've just seen the astronauts go up in the lift into the capsule itself. Now, someone said during that they ate a large meal of steak and eggs. One would imagine that they would have been on some kind of diet before that occurred. What about that, Wing Commander Howard?
Yes, they tend to put them onto a low-residue diet beforehand. I think the significance of steak and eggs for breakfast is that this is the last good meal they're going to get for 11 days, if all goes well.
But in fact, the meals they're having up there are we've been told, are almost as tasty as the real thing. They're freeze-dried, dehydrated foods, which when reconstituted with water, taste, they claim, almost as good as the real thing.
Yes, they haven't quite got the same consistency. Southern fried chicken is not really southern fried chicken in space.
What does it do to your insides in a weightless condition? Is there any difficulty in digesting or any change in the digestive system?
None at all. You're not relying on gravity at all for swallowing or digesting or doing any other thing.
What sort of problems are foreseen in general when dealing with the problem of sweat and normal perspiration and the normal body shedding that I believe goes on all the time? In fact, one sheds several thousand particles, minute particles an hour, doesn't one?
Yes, this is true. It's precisely the same problem as to go back to the food, as that of eating cream crackers, that the crumbs don't fall to the floor if they're weightless. Similarly, the particles of skin, drops of water that are spilt, don't fall.
Yes.
Yeah. Now let's go across and hear from Michael Charlton. Michael Charlton, what goes on now at Cape Kennedy?
Well, as you can see at Cape Kennedy now, it's 6 minutes before a new era of space flight for the Americans begins. The journey to the moon, which should end in a landing on the moon by the autumn of next year, with the 5 flights of this very top of this 221-foot gleaming white rocket, the Saturn 1B, are the three men who will be making this journey. One of them making the journey for the third time into space, Schirra, who is one of the original Mercury astronauts and one of the most popular figures here at the Cape.
In fact, Michael, at this point, having passed T minus 6 minutes, they've then officially passed the final choice whether to go or not to go. Is that correct?
They're now committed, yes.
There's a hole, Bradley. There's a hole.
It is within the tolerable limit, and we have just 6 minutes before we see this thing lift off. We're going to see television from this spacecraft for the first time from the Americans during this flight, which is to last, as you know, for 10 days. They'll be taking a portable television camera with them. It weighs 4.5 pounds, and we'll be able to see them in space, and they begin transmitting on Sunday.
Is there any kind of a hold yet, Michael? One often hears that about this time there's a kind of built-in hold. Are we going to hold, or are we going off in about 5 minutes? Or 6 minutes and 15 seconds?
They've just put up a countdown holding sign here. 30 minutes ago there was a hold because they had trouble with the elevator, which is part of the escape procedure for the astronauts if they have to get out of this quickly. That was scrubbed after about 30 seconds. And there's a slight count in this. We're just waiting for an announcement now.
It is a temperature problem, not serious. Length of hold not known.
Apparently
I better explain, because whilst they're sending this thing up about 500,000 miles, I've got a little thing here in my hand which won't even work.
Listen to Jack Bean. Listen to Jack Bean.
It's the most extraordinary thing, but I can't even hear a man upstairs. So excuse us being a little bit disconnected. Let us go back to America and hear the sound on the satellite.
To restart with some problem in the fuel lines that were blocked by crystallization, it is believed. That has been fixed now, but they're not taking any chances, obviously, and want to be sure that everything is as near perfect as they can make it before the takeoff from Cape Kennedy here. Let me tell you again quickly what will be happening. The ignition takes place 3 seconds before the liftoff. Then we get the liftoff. The rocket begins. Here's another note.
Resume the countdown. Now T-minus 6 minutes, 8 seconds and counting. We resume the count at 56 minutes past the hour. Now coming up on the 6-minute mark, T-minus 6 minutes and counting. T-minus 6, we are proceeding. All reports are that we are go for a launch at this time.
So the launch should come...
at this point in the countdown, now at the, we'll be coming up on the 5-minute mark. We'll be ready to retract that Apollo access arm to its full retract position. It has been on a standby position some 3 feet from the command module up to this time. We have now armed the ignition system of the Saturn 1B launch vehicle. This means that it can now receive the signals to ignite those engines at the proper time in the countdown, which will come at the 3-second mark. We'll be coming up on some final status reports at this time. T-minus 5 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. The mission director, Bill Snyder, has given a go for the launch.
The first critical moment of this launch comes after the actual liftoff, 1 minute and 15 seconds into the flight. That's when the rocket goes through the maximum dynamic pressure. That's about 8 miles up and 2 miles downrange. It's going around 1,600 miles an hour, and it's quite critical. It gets the maximum buffeting then as it kind of crosses the sound barrier. Then at 2 minutes and 14 seconds, the pitch program is terminated. It's now in the flight that will carry it into orbit. And then 2 minutes and 23 seconds, the inboard engines of the first stage cut out. 3 seconds later, the outboard engines cut out. The rocket is then 38 miles high and 37 miles downrange, running at 5,200 miles an hour. The separation takes place immediately thereafter. Separation of the first stage, and 4 seconds later, the second stage engine ignites.
This is Apollo Launch Control. Now T-minus 4 minutes, 7 seconds and counting. Spacecraft test conductor Skip Chauvin has told Commander Walter Schirra, you are go for the launch. Schirra reported that all looks good. We have now armed the destruct system of the 2 stages of the Saturn 1B launch vehicle, and we'll be coming up about a minute from this time on the automatic sequencer. From that time down, we will be completely automatic in the launch vehicle. We're now at 3 minutes, 40 seconds and counting. This is launch control.
After the ignition of the second stage engine. The launch escape tower, that's that little business right up at the top of the rocket, that little tower at the top, looks like a television antenna or something. It jettisons 15 seconds after the second stage ignites. Then the spacecraft at 4 minutes into flight reports its go, no-go condition. It does that every minute. That is, the command pilot, Schirra, reads out his instruments and says everything's working well.
3-minute mark in the count, several seconds from this time. Mark, T-minus 3 minutes and counting. T-minus 3, we are continuing. The astronauts in the spacecraft having just completed some final checks of the guidance and navigation system. We're now 2 minutes 50 seconds, coming up shortly on the automatic sequencer. The astronaut aboard advisory system is in effect at this time. The key people here at the launch complex ready to advise. Now T-minus 2 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. It appears that the automatic sequencer is in at this time. T-minus 2 minutes and 30 seconds. At this point, the various tanks in the 2 stages of the Saturn I vehicle are starting to pressurize. We pressurize these tanks with helium. They're pressurized, of course, to force the various propellants into the engine chambers for the proper ignition. The S-1B first stage fuel tank is pressurized, and the second stage liquid oxygen tank pressurizing at this time. Now coming up on the 2-minute mark, T-minus 2 minutes and counting, T-minus 2. Not as much reports now on the communication circuits as everybody stands by monitoring the various consoles and watching the various parameters to ensure everything is okay. T-minus 1 hour, 1 minute, 43 seconds and counting. We are still proceeding.
And just at this moment, a great gust of wind sweeps our press camp here.
90-second mark in our countdown. Mark, T-minus 90 seconds and counting. T-minus 90. We have conditioned the liquid oxygen in the first stage of the Saturn launch vehicle. All tanks in the 2 stages now pressurizing. Most of the work over these final several minutes concerned with the launch vehicle, directed by the test conductor, Donn 1 minute, 10 seconds and counting. We still are go at this time. Coming up on 1 minute. Mark, T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We are go for Apollo 7 at this time.
This is the first manned test of the Saturn 1B.
The vehicle now pressurized, and the vehicle is go, as is the spacecraft at this time.
First American 3-man flight.
T-minus 40 seconds and counting.
First step in our final series of tests to get American on the moon by the end of 1969.
Seconds and counting. We'll get ignition of those 8 engines in the first stage at the 3-second mark in the countdown. Now T-minus 21 seconds and counting. We have completed our power transfer. The Saturn 1B launch vehicle, which now weighs 1.3 million pounds, is ready to go. Coming up on the 10-second mark. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. We have ignition. Commit liftoff. We have liftoff.
Slowly.
This is launch control. We have cleared the tower.
5 seconds for that sound reaches.
The whole program has commenced.
Beauty of absolute straight and true on its course. Got a good view of it there with our long-range camera. Wally Schirra, Donn Eisele, Walter Cunningham, the latter 2 making their first space flight. Wally Schirra, his 3rd, riding that
1 minute, 20 seconds into the flight.
big
spacecraft
and
in the air.
The voice is now mission control changed from Jack King to
1
Paul Haney
minute,
at
40
Houston.
seconds.
They've gone through maximum dynamic pressure.
Flight director asks the flight dynamics officer if he likes it, and he says, yes, sir, looks good.
Look at the flame. 700 gallons of RP1 and liquid oxidizer burning up there every second. That thing developing 1,600,000
Coming up on 2 minutes, mark 2 minutes. We're having a status check. Apollo 7 has been given a go for staging.
Go for staging, the separation of that first stage. That comes in about
2 minutes,
10 minutes, 10
seconds.
seconds from now. That's the first critical point after liftoff.
Inboard engines have shut down.
And they're staging.
Outboard engines have shut down. Schirra called both events. He's got ignition, and he says we're up to thrust on the second stage.
That is our Igor long-range
Thrust is
camera.
okay at 2 minutes, 40 seconds into the flight.
So the 15th consecutive successful flight of the
Well, it is all
Saturn
beautiful.
1B.
That tower has really jettisoned. It went way out. We're nearly 50 miles altitude now and about 60 miles downrange.
You see the escape tower tumbling up there in the upper
3
left-hand
minutes,
side of the
5
screen.
seconds into the flight.
He got the separation plan from the first section, and the
Schirra
second
is just
stage
up
has
with
ignited.
Capcom here in Houston. A very clean voice communication today. 3 minutes, 25 seconds into the flight.
This is the best view we've ever had from our magnificent Igor camera.
Trajectory and guidance. Give another go here. Well,
Of course,
it is a little bumpy on the second stage, a little bumpy. But we can't hear any complaints. 70 miles altitude and about 120 miles downrange.
This second stage burns until 10 minutes and 15 seconds into the flight. Another 6 minutes. That's a
5 minutes, 10
225,000
seconds into the flight.
pound thrust engine.
Schirra says the gimbal check looks very good.
Well, now let's hear from our man on the spot, Michael Charlton, who was at Cape Kennedy watching that. Michael Charlton, what do you think of all that?
Well, what you won't have heard in London is, because there's no technique known to radio or television yet which can properly record this sound, is the enormous thunder that just breaks over you when this thing lifts off. I'm speaking to you about 2 miles away from the launch pad, and it sounded as if a bomb had burst outside the front door here. The whole building shook. It's the most exciting noise I think I've heard for a long time. It's a marvelous shot you're seeing from this camera, and I hope you can still see it all those thousands of miles across the Atlantic. It's being taken from a camera about 20 miles away from here, which can see through the cloud overcast. The rocket now is traveling at over 5,000 miles an hour, and at about 160 or 70 miles downrange. In another 5 minutes, it'll be going into orbit at an altitude of 141 miles, by which time it'll be traveling at 17,000 miles an hour.
Michael, thank you just very much indeed for a moment.
Commit liftoff. We have liftoff.
Slowly.
This is launch control. We have cleared the tower. Roger, tower clear.
5 seconds for that sound reaches.
The whole program has commenced.
Beauty of absolute mountain sky. As scheduled. That looks good. Here it looks fine. Straight and true on its course. get a good view of it there with our long-range camera. Wally Schirra, Donn Eisele, Walter Cunningham, the latter two making their first space flight. Wally Schirra, his third, riding that
1 minute, 20 seconds into the flight.
big
Go on the ground
spacecraft
and in the air.
The voices now of mission control change from Jack King to
1
Paul Haney
minute,
at
40
Houston.
seconds.
They've gone through maximum dynamic pressure.
Flight director asks the flight dynamics officer if he likes it, and he says, yes, sir, it looks good.
Look at the flame. 700 gallons of RP1 and liquid oxidizer burning up there every second. That thing developing 1,600,000
Coming up on 2 minutes, mark 2 minutes. We're having a status check. Apollo 7 has been given a go for staging.
Go for staging, the separation of that first stage. That comes in about
2 minutes,
10 minutes, 10
seconds.
seconds from now. That's the first critical point after liftoff.
Inboard engines have shut down.
And they're staging.
Outboard engines have shut down. Schirra called both events. He's got ignition, and he says we're up to thrust on the second stage.
And the latest news I've just had on the telephone is that everything is going well. In fact, the Apollo astronauts have just been telling the ground that we're having a ball.
And if you now turn over to the other side on track 1, I think it is, yes, track 1, you'll be able to hear the astronauts coming down, landing. That is about 11 days later. In fact, the date was Tuesday, the 22nd of October, 1968. So let's turn over the tape and listen to the other channel.
Talk about something that has impressed me in this re-entry and splashdown, as well as throughout the flight, and that is the skill of the command pilot, John Young. He has now conducted 2 extremely successful rendezvous in space and a very accurate splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean.
I think so. I certainly agree with that. Mr. Hammersmith, don't you think that this was a well-planned and executed mission?
It was a well-planned one, Rhett. It was also a very complicated mission to plan, which makes it all the more noteworthy that it came off so well.